Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I'm your host, Kevin Wallace, and before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you about our friends at the Empanadas Box. The Empanadas Box is a small, family-owned restaurant owned by natives of Buenos Aires, Argentina, and they have Argentine-style empanadas with 22 other globally inspired flavors available every single day. Looking for a suggestion? Well, how about the Oktoberfest empanada with bratwurst from LK sausage? It also has cabbage, carrots, onion, and mustard that is only available in the month of September. Their empanadas are available for dine-in and carry-out, but the pro move here is to get a box of frozen ones to take home. You can also find them in your favorite food delivery app. You can check them out online at theempanadasbox.com or check the link down in the description. You can find more information there, including information on their catering options for lunches, parties, and more. And a special offer to listeners of the Postcast, well, they're offering 10% off your order at their Covington, Kentucky location if you mention the Postcast at checkout. They're at 212 West Pike Street in Covington, and I am happy to report that the staff there are incredibly nice and the food is top notch. If you've been listening to the Postcast, you know we've been talking these guys up well before they were a sponsor of the Postcast. So again, special thanks to the Empanadas Box, incredible folks there. And if you go to their Covington, Kentucky location, they'll get you 10% off for mentioning the Postcast. And on this episode of the Postcast, well, this is a bit of a wild one. In part one, we are airing our grievances. Look, the Supporter Shield is likely to be wrapped up in the next week or so. And we thought we'd get some things off our chest, get the negativity out of our system now, not for the team, of course, but for anything and everything else surrounding the team. Sort of a early Festivus, if you will. We talk about, of course, some St. Louis City fans online. We talk about the disrespect that this team is getting by the media, et cetera, et cetera. In part two, we do a little bit of scoreboard watching. Not a whole lot of scoreboard watching to be done anymore, but there were a couple of games being played while we were recording, and we kind of look ahead of what teams, what games FC Cincinnati should actually be paying attention to. And then finally, in part three, we look ahead to Toronto, the big matchup where a win will guarantee the Supporter Shield. Somebody mentions he who must not be named and has their punishment in this one, and that's going to be your Postcast. Well, joining me to talk about all of that and more are two gentlemen that are as excited for this weekend as I am. I can only assume. I'm joined by Grayson. I'm also joined by Chief. And Chief, I don't know if we need a warning in this episode. You've been picking a lot of fights on the internet recently. Should I have the censor button ready in case you say the scumbag word?
Well, I mean, if you ask the people that are the head of the Supporter Shield Foundation, I probably need a censor button.
Please tell me you got in trouble from the principal's office, that is the ISC.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure. So to be clear, there are multiple. I learned this today. There are multiple organizations. So there's the ISC, which, as far as I can tell, dark money group.
Right.
I tried to find their Form 990s or any of their tax forms and stuff online. They seem to be registered as some type of social club, so not available.
ISC, real quick, for anybody who doesn't know, all of your favorite MLS supporters groups, including many of the ones here in Cincinnati, like the Pride, DI, Hangar, the Brigade, are all members of the ISC. This is, or maybe not Brigade. Oh, excuse me. But the all of these different supporters groups, they make up the ISC. That's sort of the it's kind of like that scene in like one of those Pirates of the Caribbean sequels where
it's
like
the Council
all of the
Kangs.
Yes, it's all of the different pirate groups come together to loosely agree to guidelines.
It would be kind of like if every high school in Cincinnati had a student council, and the student councils all sent one representative to a super student council that meets locally that can have absolutely no influence of note on policy that happens, but occasionally they get together and award like a Teacher of the Year award or something like that.
Why don't we do that? That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't.
Or it's like your Greek interfraternity council, where it's like they're not all of a sudden going to let you start drinking in the dorm rooms and boozing on the streets. But you can certainly make that suggestion on behalf of you and the rest of the members of Delta Tau Delta.
So
So that is ISC. Yes.
I don't participate in supporters group stuff, but I do gather that like my feeling is it's like the Council of Ricks from Rick and Morty, where it's different versions of the same guy. And to any outsider, you're like, oh, that's all the same guy. But they all are like, no, that guy fucking sucks.
I mean, like, we should probably explain the backstory as to like what's going on right here. So the reason why...
Wait, one more thing.
Oh yeah.
So the
there's more dark money.
ISC, dark money, for sure. Supporters Shield Council, they are ostensibly the group that should be putting their stuff online, but they file a 990 postcard, which you can't see, but they have to certify that their revenue is under $50,000.
Stay woke.
The numbers I've seen bandied about would suggest that it would be pretty easy to go over that threshold, but okay.
So the reason why this is all to pull the curtain back on this episode, yes. We find ourselves on the eve of a monumental moment in FC Cincinnati history. Based on how everything has lined up, the table is set that with, I believe, any victory, or indeed 2 points between now and the end of the season,
pretty close to any point at any time of this season.
Get a point. The FC is going to be the new home of the Supporters Shield. And so as a result of this, we're all getting in Cincinnati a crash course in what exactly the Supporters Shield is in terms of the actual physical trophy itself. Like, there's no disputing what it means to have the most points. You've had the most points, you've had the best season. But if you didn't know this, the actual Supporters Shield trophy itself is not awarded by MLS. It is awarded by the supporters of MLS that are constituted by the Independent Supporters Council, the ISC aforementioned, and then the Supporters Shield Trust, which holds the rights to the Supporters Shield trophy and then releases it and awards it to teams for a year. It's like the Stanley Cup. There is only one Supporters Shield. It was in Los Angeles. It will be transported to Cincinnati to be awarded to FC Cincinnati, and then we will pass it off eventually when we stop being the number one team in MLS, when we stop being on the top of the regular season points total in 2, 3, 4 years, whenever that happens. And let me tell you, they take this very seriously. And when you suggest that perhaps the Supporters Shield looks like the Space Force logo, they don't take too kindly to that. So we were kicking around on the pre-show group thread, and before we started taping, I think the plan is this right, Kevin? That this episode and this first segment, in order to prepare our souls to receive the Supporters Shield, which is interesting because it looks like a communion plate for a Catholic mass. So we're really on brand here. In order to prepare our souls for the receipt of the Supporters Shield, we're going to get all the poison out. There's going to be an airing of grievances, the things that have made us mad, so that when we win the Shield, the episode can be fully celebratory and it can be all gas, no brakes heading into MLS Cup playoffs and beyond. Is that the plan here?
That is 100% the plan.
Okay, so I got an early start on this by picking a fight with fucking everybody this week online.
Everybody. Oh, if the folks listening to the podcast aren't on the website formerly known as Twitter, currently x.com, well, you would have missed a hell of a week from Chief here, but I think FC Cincinnati Twitter in general and St. Louis fans broadly to sort of like set the ground stage and lay out who the combatants were in this lovely online flame war. Lucho Acosta's insane goal, the goal that was compared to Maradona's goal of the century, a type of goal that is so rare that there's really only about 2 or 3 instances of anybody replicating something similar to it, was put up for goal of the week, as it should have been, along with Barrial's free kick, along with 2 other goals in MLS. And one of those goals was St. Louis's defensive midfielder, Bloom? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
It doesn't matter what your name is, son.
God, I was about to say the exact same fucking thing.
I'm going to assume it's Blom because he is South African. And
his name would be cooler if it was just Blom. If it was Blom in all capital letters with an unnecessary umlaut over top of the O, that would be cool. I would respect that.
It's the name of a product in a really bad sci-fi novel of like, it's just a thing.
I don't want to go after Blom because this is bigger than Blom.
I've got nothing against him. I just didn't investigate the player that much. So I want to be clear that I'm coming at this from a place of ignorance. Now, he had a fine goal. Type of goal you'd see.
Yeah.
Yes, it was fine. It was fine.
St. Louis fans, of the net. Any goal hits the back of the net, that's a good goal.
Yeah, lovely.
I do have to point out, though, that it was said that it was his first goal of the season, and it does kind of make him a bum that it took him 30 games to score his first goal.
OB had a goal game 1 against Houston.
Junior Moreno's already had a goal this season.
A couple of bangers.
Nick Hagland has had goals this year. So don't give me this bullshit that he was a defender.
Mascara's had goals. Santiago Arias has had goals.
Yeah.
And better goals. All of our guys have had as good, if not better, goals.
So when you say it's his first goal, it's like, well, that cuts both ways.
Right.
The only rationale for giving this goal of the week should have meant that retroactively, OB should have gotten goal of the week.
Right.
When he scored against Houston. Or when he scored against New York Red Bulls.
Yes. So, yes, jumping ahead a little bit, St. Louis fans voted for their team's goal. Because, of course, right, we would do the exact same thing. Who wouldn't vote for their team's goal? Now, in the comments, there looked to be genuine arguments that his goal was better than Acosta's because it was his first. Now, insane. But I'm taking them as being earnest. If these were sarcastic and we missed the sarcasm, that's on us.
Yep.
But these look to be genuine arguments. Then
but I will tell you,
course,
from what I saw online with people, the earnest white faces explaining at Carter why Blum's goal should have been goal of the week. There was no irony or sarcasm.
Right. No.
It was fully earnest. And I will have more to say, but Kevin, keep going.
I would have respected it if it was sarcastic. Would have kind of enjoyed it. Well, through obviously they're an expansion team doing well, so excitement is high. There's a highly engaged fan base, and then as we learned for the first week that Kalahemo Mokocho, wow, I can never get that one.
Kamahelo Mokocho.
Kamahelo
Mokocho.
This is why I always call him Camo,
Mokojo.
and I will not move from that.
Waste of cash also works in this space too.
Waste of Kamahelo Mokocho.
Well, for the first week he was on FC Cincinnati, man, our social media was exploding with excited South African fans. They were so hyped for this guy. And then he sucked and they all went away. And fair enough. But for this Blom feller, they appear to still like him. He's playing for a competitive team, so they're still following him. So there were lots of fans from South Africa who were voting him up. And all of a sudden, Lucho Acosta was not running away with goal of the week with what was very easily one of the greatest goals in MLS history, like as an objective fact.
Certainly one of the goals of the year.
If not the goal of the week. So of course, in our attempt to do right by our man, the newly re-signed captain of this team, FC Cincinnati Twitter folks decided to start a Get Out the Vote campaign. Twitter folk, they tried a Get Out the Vote campaign.
We mashed that caps lock button and went to work.
Yes, some people posted it on Reddit or in various fan discords that they might have been a part of. Chief, I don't know if you have the tweet up, but do you mind reading the fine folks of this podcast what it was you tweeted, because the language here is very important.
It does certainly have some relevance to what this is. So and you have to understand this is in all caps, and I'm going to read it word for word so that you can also see that there's a horrendous typo and a missing word in here.
And by the way, all caps tweets mean take me seriously, not literally.
Yeah. It means I am literally shouting this. I am shouting this at the top of my little piggy lungs. Attention all FC Cincinnati fans. You absolutely cannot this scumbag from St. Louis win. This is a call to action. Vote, retweet. Tag all of your FCC friends on the post and tell them to vote. Do it now. Do it for our captain. And then also in all caps, #all4Cincy.
Wow. Now, I noticed you used a certain word there.
Don't you feel inspired listening to that?
I do. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I had already voted by the time you had tweeted that, but I really felt compelled to vote a second time. So I actually genuinely voted from the post's account, which I hadn't thought to do before. But I read your tweet and I felt the post needs to weigh in. It's time to break our journalistic neutrality here.
Which we've always taken very seriously. It's just
we are very serious. Internet polls incredibly serious.
Everyone has a breaking point.
Yeah, no. So I was doing what I thought I needed to do for Lucho right here. I needed to make sure that, we're up in the lad. We're getting shit out. We're getting the vote out on everything like that. I decided that we needed to maybe, bring in some help on this one. So my next tweet was tagging the Pope at Pontifex. A fellow Argentinian, Lucho Acosta, needs your support. Plus, the goal was so sick, we're pretty sure it qualifies as a miracle for any candidate for sainthood who needs a dub to get over the canonization hump.
So I will say, so we'll deal with your other tweet shortly. But the at Pontifex, very funny, first of all. Second of all, someone took that like super seriously. They're like, how desperate are you that you're tagging the Pope? It's like, my man. I think you need to retake your driving test.
Look, I'm going to throw this out there. I went to Catholic school.
I think you might need a guardian ad litem.
I know the drill here. You need 2 miracles to get canonized as a saint. And that goal surely counts as one if we can get some proof someone was praying for intervention from some very, holy person. I'm sure there's somebody that's on the verge of canonization that was doing something
I will
somewhere.
Say that the foot that carried off that play, would not decompose.
No.
You gotta put that. You gotta take that down to St. Xavier, put it in a box, and people can tour it.
Yeah,
100 years
invite
from
pilgrims.
now.
Yeah.
Right. The first thing to do is you check for stigmata. The second thing you do is check for decomposition. One or the other is going to be present on Lucho Acosta's foot, I guarantee you.
Before
one
we
may
get to
be
your
present
second tweet,
or the other not be present.
Indeed.
oh yes, could sporting prowess eventually lead to sainthood? I feel like there's enough, like the miracle of whatever, like there's enough there.
I mean,
I feel like somebody's going to play their way to sainthood.
I was about to say that would be an all-time baller move for Franco over in the Vatican, is if on his way out the door, he canonizes the guy whose name we're not allowed to say. The first living saint.
If not him, I mean,
Maradona.
Maradona had, I think, a complicated relationship with Rome, but
So,
I don't know.
Maradona did have a complicated relationship with Rome. However, since Francis is not a true pope,
oh, that's true.
he probably got along with Maradona.
Maradona,
Since Francis is not actually Catholic,
He's a Jesuit.
That's very helpful.
and sorry, I was listening to some Jim Caviezel videos earlier today.
If I remember correctly, and I'm going off the dome here, so this is not well researched. Maradona, pretty far left in his politics, was a real good friend of Fidel Castro, but also a devout Catholic. But
yeah, so he'll get along great with the Jesuits. What are you talking about?
But he went.
Yeah, he would have loved Francis. Yeah.
Yeah. He went to the Vatican and basically told the Pope he should give all of the riches back to South America, where they stole everything.
Yeah,
from.
where's the line?
All right, we just gave Maradona one miracle with that goal from Lucho. Like we can get the next one.
I do see no reason why sporting shouldn't qualify. Shouldn't be a realm in which you can do miracles. I mean, I'm pretty sure one of Augustine's miracles was like he gallivanted quite a bit and ended up without any kinds of diseases.
Well, okay, if that's all it takes, so somebody being very good at a sport should certainly meet a threshold somewhere.
Much like St. Patrick drove all the snakes out of Ireland, I was attempting to drive all the scumbags off of MLS Twitter. So,
so yes. Anyway, detouring through the Vatican here, we arrive back at the Chiefs' Twitter timeline here. This is probably a good time to just throw out there, and Chief, if you want me to delete this afterwards, so be it. I love when people take the Queen City War Pigs as an SG account. Is one of my favorite things.
I mean, we have members.
I own a scarf.
Yeah,
that makes at least two of us.
People walk up to Chief and say, "Hey, do you have my scarf?"
Yeah. I mean,
that's got to mean something.
There are rules in soccer, okay? If you have a scarf, that means you are a supporters group. I don't make these rules, okay? I just follow these rules and do what everybody else does, has someone else design my merch, and then sell them so that I can buy beer for Tifo painting. Yeah, scumbag. I thought, I was looking for something alliterative, like St. Louis shithead was the first one that came to mind, and I was like, trying to keep it a little PG so we can get some retweets. I was thinking to myself, what if Lucho's kids stumbled across this? Like in support of dad. Like I did have that moment, which is a sure sign I'm getting too old for the banter game.
That's good.
So we went back, we deleted the curse words, and it was like, this is very Batman the Animated Series, like talk scumbag in the Kevin Conroy voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently that made a lot of Blom's friends mad.
So the entire weirdo wing of the St. Louis fandom online took Chief's tweet in a direction that I don't know how they could have done this. Basically assumed and insinuated that the word scumbag was a top 5 most offensive thing someone could say on the internet. It's the weirdest reaction I've ever seen. And then It just invited the worst fans in the world into everybody's mentions, and we saw some the R word being bandied about, some casual homophobia, tons
not casual homophobia,
like straight out homophobia,
intentional homophobia, homophobia,
and
honestly, like if you want to call us the queer city, I'll wear that.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
Fine.
That's phenomenal.
I'll own that. I think that's cool.
Queer City War Pigs would be good merch.
Queer City War Pigs next year for Pride Month.
I will absolutely do that scarf. Springsteen, if you're listening, let's get on this for next year.
I don't think it's offensive to call somebody queer. It's offensive when you mean it as an insult.
Yeah, in a pejorative. Yeah, it's really insult, and it's really insulting. And the other thing too is it's like, are you guys familiar with my favorite Twitter account prior to becoming like deeply enmeshed in soccer Twitter was the Best Fans in Baseball Twitter account?
Yes.
Where it is nothing but St. Louis Cardinals fans just tweeting the most vile shit known to mankind.
Well, if you want to,
usually at their own players.
Yeah. So what I was alluding to before was like with the earnestness of like the inability of these St. Louis fans to like understand any type of sarcasm or hyperbole, and just being like, well, we just thought it was unfair to take a nice young man and use a bad word at him. And it's like, that is exactly like the embodiment of St. Louis fans, except like the second you ask them like to not like go to a baseball game and chant the name of a cop that shot an unarmed black man, they will fail that test. And if you want to learn about St. Louis fans, I would suggest best fans in the land, or best fans.
Best fans St. Louis.
Baseball.
Best fans in baseball. The Twitter account is Best Fans St. Louis, I think.
Also, just Google, St. Louis Ferguson Deadspin.
Yeah,
you'll find a real fun selection of articles. And then I saw like one of these St. Louis people who was accusing Scumbag of being a dog whistle somehow, which it's not, of course.
Right.
As far as any of us know. Call somebody like, refer to like they were talking about like city versus suburbs in St. Louis, and they used the word uppity. Like
there's one.
That's a bad one. You can't do that's one of the bad words.
That's a whistle. That's like blowing the whistle as loudly as you can. That's blowing the whistle.
It's a train whistle.
It was a phenomenal bummer, and this is where it's like where my airing of grievances is that soccer Twitter should be fun. This should be fun. We're all having a good time. They're in first place in the West. We're in first place in the East. They're calling on a bunch of weirdos from South Africa to come and vote for their man. And it's like
normal people from South Africa.
No. I lived through Joe Sue on FC Cincinnati. These people are profoundly weird that are like still super into their guy when he leaves their team and leaves their league. Like if Joe Sue had scored a goal in MLS, he would have run away with goal of the year, goal of the month, goal of the decade, just from Corolla Blasters weirdos getting all deep up in the mentions. No, don't defend these people. They are profoundly fucking weird. But they're harmlessly weird. The St. Louis thing this week was like depressingly weird. It was just... It was like the Detroit City thing a few years back,
100%,
where it was
100%.
like it was fun for 20 minutes, and then the weirdest people worked their way out of the woodwork, and it's like this is it's a bummer dealing with this. It's a bummer dealing with all of you, and it's like it's an uncomfortable acknowledgement that shit. I share the same space with a lot of people I would want to walk out of a room if they walked into.
It is so frustrating because what starts off as like fun just quickly is not fun. And Yeah, it reminds me, I mean, Chief, that reminded me of a story of a friend of mine who was in architecture school at UC, and he dropped out and became a philosophy major. And whenever anybody asked him, like, why this hard, sudden shift, he said he never met an architect he liked. He just didn't want to be in that world. He didn't want to become one of them. It's like, yeah, man, I get that. Oh. That's cool. And yeah, it's just like, I don't want to be associated with these people. Like, I'm having fun. I'm accusing their GM of being a match fixer. Yeah. I'm still not convinced by anything anybody has ever posted to me that he wasn't guilty of something in Singapore. But yeah, it gets not fun when people are like talking about your kids. May have
fucked a penguin, we decided earlier this year.
Which I did not know the second penguin ended up decapitated. I didn't know the end of that story.
So it sounds like somebody was trying to
cover up the
evidence of what happened, whatever, with that penguin's mouth.
Oh my
god! So, but also it's fun to say stuff like within a fan base about other fan bases, and like of course, if the roles were reversed, and some St. Louis player who had like a worldy goal, and then Yuya Kubo had like the most average goal in history and somehow found himself nominated for goal of the week, I would vote for Yuya Kubo's goal of the week.
Yes, of course.
I would not, however, try to earnestly get into St. Louis people's mentions and try to argue with them about why Yuya Kubo, because of the soft bigotry of low expectations, deserves to be rewarded for this mid thing. And I certainly wouldn't like a week later be like,
right.
And
still talking about it.
It feels like a week. It's like 2 days. But I certainly wouldn't be like tagging St. Louis people and being like, St. Louis is going to hate this with my little clickbait. Be like, but Alvaro Barrial should be goalie of the year. I don't know, because of course I'm not bothered by St. Louis fans saying like Carnell should be coach of the year or that like Berkey should be MVP. Right, sure. Your guys.
Right.
I don't know why they want to talk to us about it.
Right. It's like they finally had fun on the internet. They did. All of us got burned out real quick with what they were up to, and now they're addicted to it. And just like we saw this with MLS right before they found more interesting things to move on to, I guess. But like you get a lot of clicks, a lot of views if you can somehow shoehorn Cincinnati into it. And St. Louis is at that point.
We are the Holly Go Lightly of MLS fan bases.
Perpetually online.
Anybody gets a second of our attention and they just keep showing up. They just keep showing up, just begging for it. And it's like, no, I've moved on. No, I just want to find my lost cat.
Right. This app is fun while I'm, on the can or like work slows down. I don't need my entire life to be consumed. The argument doesn't need to continue beyond 15 minutes. And you certainly don't need to be weird about it. Like just
I don't need to see your boring ass little podcast with 3 guys sitting around a table looking at your phones being like, Roman Berkey, 7 clean sheets. The last goalie to be MVP was some guy named Mole. That's like a sauce, I think.
Anthony Mole.
Oh, them butchering Tony Miola's name was insane. It's like clearly the soccer capital of the United States was founded in 2022. Yeah, right.
And like, look, we publicly took their side on this podcast about being ceased and desisted by Kansas City.
Yeah, we did. And this is what we get. This is what we get in return.
This is what we get. Wow. But publicly on the podcast, so only the 12 listeners knew about that.
Yeah. We were on the wrong side of history. It turns out.
Yeah, it turns out.
Kansas City did nothing wrong.
Kansas City should have sued that team and that city into the ground.
Yeah, it's not too late to refile.
Kansas City should take some of their barbecue and just dump it into whatever river flows into St. Louis, and then just taint the water supply, and
St. Louis just won't fix it.
That they'll just be sad. They'll be like,
yeah.
"Well, we're just shucks, guys. We're just good locker room guys. We just like to have. We're just plucky and going along."
The best of I have still to this day have no idea who Blom is. Like, I'm not going to look it up.
I don't care.
But he was, somebody in my mentions did say he's Obina Woboto with way more upside, and I just was like, I need to get off this app. Like, there is no productive discussion.
Was it a St. Louis fan that said that?
No shit, it was a St. Louis fan. No, it was Tom Bogirl. Everybody knows this. It's just it was a bummer, and
yeah.
The worst part of this is that it overshadowed, which was the real travesty, which is that this mid-goal won goal of the week over Lucho Acosta. What probably will win goal of the year was overshadowed by this dude who'd gone 29 games scoreless, finding the back of the net in a top corner snapshot. It's like, all right, cool. This is the dumbest way to settle this.
So, Blom is 23. He just moved from Kaiser Chiefs to St. Louis.
One of the biggest clubs in Africa.
Also a great alt-rock band about 10, 15 years ago.
Also true.
Yeah.
Yes.
When Woboto,
Ruby, their big song, I think. I Predict a Riot. Good shit.
Yeah. When Woboto was 23, he was playing in when he was 22, he was playing in Europa League.
Oh, okay. So
way more upside.
He's already missed the upside.
It's the whole world upside down this week.
While we are airing, please
go.
I was going to say, while we are airing grievances, can I please beg every FC Cincinnati fan to stop using this one, because this is my least favorite thing that somebody says on the internet that isn't obvious. It's the rent-free thing.
Oh,
despise it. I despise it. Do you have any idea how much shit lives rent-free in my head? This is not an insult. This is not a I'm under your skin. I cannot learn new things because I know the entire floor plan of the well in Ocarina of Time. Okay. It's like the not quite a temple, but also kind of a temple in Ocarina of Time. I have the full blueprint in my brain. Everything lives rent free. So when somebody tweets at you an insult from an opposing fan base and you respond to that and they say, we live rent free, one, they're not using it right. And two, it's so stupid. I have a lot of MLS in my mind when I'm discussing MLS.
What rent free means is when a St. Louis podcast posts a clip of them talking about how Roman Berkey should be MVP, which again,
sure,
I don't begrudge them picking any of their players for MVP. That's what you're supposed to do. You're a fan.
Right.
But what rent free is when you post that clip on Twitter and you do the hashtag all for Cincy because you're trying to get Cincinnati fans to react to it. That is what rent free is. Rent free isn't somebody interacted with me and I responded to them.
Right.
Although I usually don't respond to people. I usually just like that I took a screenshot of that podcast just to tell my followers not to interact with it. But the fucking For You tab migrates that shit over. So then they responded to me. I'm like, oh, thank you for responding to me. I get to mute you now.
Yeah, great.
Also, let's be real. living rent free in my head is a bad deal for you.
Yeah, you don't want to be there.
You don't want to be there. It's a lot of useless memories of going to Dave Matthews concerts. It's knowing cheat codes for video games, like you were saying, Kevin. It's knowing all the words to Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style album from back in the 90s. There's nothing good in there that's worth anything. If there was something worth having in there, I wouldn't be hosting a podcast with 12 listeners. I'd be making real money somewhere.
Yeah. Speaking of my something I want to bitch about,
please.
The emerging narrative that Bradley Carnell should be coach of the year instead of Pat Noonan.
Yeah, fuck this.
What can Pat Noonan fucking do? By the way, I think he's going to get coach of the year. Okay. But like, what is he supposed to do to get coach of the year? Last year, he took a team that every fucking MLS pundit said was years from competing. And they, like, I think they were full of shit and didn't know what they were talking about.
Right.
Because they're just insiders. They're not like skilled analysts. But however, the consensus among everybody who's paid in other than Empanada's gift cards to comment on delicious
Empanadas gift card
was saying that this team was years from being even competitive. People were picking us for the wooden spoon last year. And Noonan took a team that was not only competitive, but gave Philly.
Yes.
All that they could handle in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And I would say was, top 5 team in MLS by the end of the season.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But the finalists were just like the top 3 in the Supporters Shield standings.
Wow.
And two of those were people who had just taken teams that were like really good, Jim Curtin and Steve Cherundolo, and just kept them really good. And like Jim Curtin won coach of the year, and he took Philly, which had been one of the best teams in MLS for the last like 5 years, and just kept them one of the best teams in MLS.
And didn't win anything.
Didn't win anything.
Wasn't this supposed to be the thing when we hired Pat Noonan? That, finally, the MLS intelligentsia will start to respect our organization because Pat Noonan is one of them. And if nothing else, they will have to, even if Pat Noonan did a mediocre job, which to be fair, he has done an incredible job. Yeah, but even if he'd done a mediocre job, they would still want to pump his tires a little bit at, look, the mistake that Jeff Birding and the organization made was they should have hired someone like this all along. And how dare you not give opportunities to people who know MLS and who know ball, to borrow a phrase that I saw a lot of this week talking about goals. Yeah. So and we're not getting that even. We're not even getting the you hired one of our friends to manage. We're not even getting that benefit of the fucking doubt here.
Ugh.
And so then last year, it's like, fine. Okay. The Supporters Shield points tying coaches get to be 1 and 2.
Fair.
This year, Pat Noonan runs away with the Supporters Shield.
Yeah.
And now everybody's like, well, you got to look at like what Bradley Carnell has done.
Ugh,
because everybody else he's beaten expectations. And like, yeah, like he might have started at like 0, although this team has been together, let's be real, for 2 years. Because they basically had this team in MLS Next Pro last year.
Right.
But Pat Noonan was like starting below 0 last year.
Yeah.
And then now when he runs with the Supporters Shield, apparently no longer do we care. Like, what's the rationale? That like the talent on FC Cincinnati is like so overwhelming versus the rest of the league that we should just overlook that, like, anybody could have won Supporters Shield with FC Cincinnati. Have we already gotten there? Are we already at the point where FC Cincinnati is such a juggernaut that any coach
That's such a hell of a point. That like where St. Louis started this year is a better position than Pat Noonan started, because Pat Noonan started with dead weight he couldn't get rid of. 0 would have been an improvement. If you would have offered Pat Noonan a blank slate coming to FC with the full battery of resources that you would have from having no GAM tied up in anyone, no long-term contracts tied up in anyone, I'll bet he would have taken that deal, even if it meant losing Lucho Acosta, the MVP this year. He probably would have launched the entire roster when he took over.
Here's a good example of that. Kenneth Vermeer was on the 2023 FC Cincinnati team. Think about that.
Is Kenneth Vermeer going to get like a credit for a supporter shield?
I don't know how many games you have to be here, but I think he was here for at least 10, and that feels like a good threshold.
Jesus. And then there is the St. Louis people are pushing Berkey for MVP, and I've seen MLS pundits pushing Berkey for MVP. And I'm sorry, if your goalie is an MVP candidate, that detracts from the coach's coach of the year argument.
Right.
And that's all on the executive that signed him. And I'm pretty sure that Berkey was signed to St. Louis before Carnell was.
He was.
Berkey was like one of the first players that Fannin Steele. Roman Berkey played in MLS Next Pro last year.
The other thing too, like making a goalkeeper MVP, they have to be. It would be like making a kicker the MVP of the NFL. I'm not opposed to the idea in theory, and I can come up with an idea in my head as to why you would do this, but they had better be absolutely annihilating every stat that they keep for their position at a historic level in order to win the award.
And you know who has more shutouts than Roman Berkey?
Is his name Roman Celentano?
It is.
Would that same person also have more wins than Roman Berkey?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Would that person also have fewer goals allowed total than Roman Berkey?
I'll take your word for it.
That's absolutely correct.
That is also true.
Yes, yeah. More clean sheets, fewer goals allowed, more wins. I'm sorry. You can cite me every advanced metric you want about why Roman Berkey is a better goalkeeper than Roman Celentano, and I will buy it. Sure, whatever. I love it.
But if I can make a colorable argument that Roman Celentano has had a better season
then
than Roman
that dude
Berkey,
shouldn't win MVP.
He's not fucking MVP.
Right.
Like, you better be better than every other goalkeeper on the basic metrics, the advanced metrics, the metric system, a metric ton. I don't give a fuck. Everything needs to be better if you're going to make this guy MVP. And it's not.
Yeah, and like there have been more heroic performances where the goalkeeper truly was the standout and they never gave it. Like Matt Turner in New England, Andre Blake in Philadelphia have had more impactful seasons. And yeah, like, I don't know, takes away from it that he's like a DP as well. Like, again, like DP should be graded on a curve. Like he is probably the only DP goalkeeper in the league.
I don't think he's a DP.
He's not?
I think he's Max Tam.
Okay. But regardless, he's the highest paid goalkeeper. I feel pretty confident in saying that.
I think that's right, yes.
So if you're going to grade on a curve there, I think that's worth taking into consideration as well. So
anyway, I don't think he's the real
threat
competition for Lucho anyway.
Yeah. It just bothers me people are saying it out loud. Like that's where my grievance would be here.
Yeah, it bothers me when like MLS pundits say it out loud, and I understand that it's really because they just
need content
and they need to like act like other people are in the running. But like what bothers me is when Taylor Twellman calls an LAFC game and he says, I would be shocked if Bouanga is not MVP.
Ugh.
And it's like, my God, man.
You'd be shocked?
He's not top 3.
Right. Be like, Bowanga's making an argument for MVP. Like, that's fine. But yeah, to be shocked he wouldn't win. And I want to go back to the Pat Noonan point for just a moment, because I do feel like, yeah, the wins and the season overall and the top line is great, but like he managed the sale of Brenner and the introduction of Bupenza flawlessly. Like this team did not miss a step, and what would normally sink an MLS team, that most MLS teams have punted entire seasons for making transitions like this.
This team won a game 3-0 with Ray Gaddis, Alvis Powell, and Ian Murphy starting as a 3-man center back.
Yeah. And tell me again why Roman Celentano just had an incredible defense in front of him the whole time. That incredible defense mainly consists of Nick Hagland, a youngster coming off of 2 devastating injuries on loan in Mosquera, and Ian Murphy, a recent college grad who has somehow played his way into the conversation where people don't even notice.
Been really good lately.
Yeah.
Right.
Really good.
Like, he blends right into this team.
Shockingly good with the ball at his feet too.
It's everybody said we overpaid for Junior Moreno. Now he just looks like a stalwart on this team.
Now he's a bargain.
Yeah. Arias, who, again, was a gamble for this coaching staff. And I don't know how much credit you want to give, the management of an injury and injury history to the coaching staff, but managed his minutes very well, introduced, the right backups and kept this team afloat to the point now where Arias is an important member of the offense as much as the defense. Like there's so much going on.
Barrial, converted winger.
Barrial's conversion,
like a year and a half ago, there was no like even thought in his head probably that he would be playing as an outside back.
Yeah, look at
Barrial being a fucking all-star.
Yeah,
outside back.
You go back to before Pat Noonan started. Alvaro Barrial was a winger that wasn't playing his current position. Brandon Vasquez couldn't get minutes on this team. He's now positioned himself for a major sale to Europe. Brenner was an underperforming striker who they have gotten back right, sold, bought a replacement with no drop-off whatsoever in production on the offense. Like, the list goes on of shit that every accomplishment that Noonan and Albright have made, and Noonan specifically for this, that Noonan has made on this team has been so good in escalation that we are like forgetting the steps along the way that led us to this point. And it's like we're underselling Pat Noonan because the team is so ruthlessly efficient that things we're taking for granted are major.
Look at how Yuya Kubo has salvaged himself as an offensive player. Right? Like we thought that like he was shuffled to the back by Yapstam. And he still plays, back in like that kind of 8 position when we need him to. But like lately in a number of important games, he's been a key contributor offensively in a way that he hadn't been. Like this was a guy who like was on the verge of having his career ruined by mismanagement.
Yeah. Brenner was in line to being one of the biggest busts in MLS history. And Noonan and company was able to turn that into a break-even situation. Just incredible. Like, these are the kinds of things that ought to be rewarded. And if Noonan had won Coach of the Year last year, I'm not sure I'd be as adamant he needs to win it this year. But for the accomplishment of last year and how much this has been a non-race. I think somebody said we haven't been outside of first place since like week 13, I think it was.
Yeah, and even then below second since like week 5.
Yeah. It's like it hasn't been close, man. You look at the rest of the standings. Like there was a point in time where Nashville was pushing us, and then it was New England, and then it was Columbus, and then it was Philly, and then it was Orlando, and you see it out west as well. Seattle was left for dead. Now they're going to finish third. The rest of the season for everybody else has had wild swings. Cincinnati's been constant, just a steady first place. Not that we had a dip and have come back up or anything like that. It's been incredibly impressive. And I don't know what else he needs to do.
And look, if he doesn't win this year, then there's like literally no scenario.
Right.
That
what does he do as
coaches as coach of the year?
What does he do as a follow-up act next year?
But you can't. But there's no, like, people have said such hyperbolically negative things about our team.
Yeah.
That they've boxed themselves in a corner. That I felt like last year the only way to make any of the stuff that they had said true was to give Pat Noonan Coach of the Year. Obviously that didn't happen. But you can't, like, this is, if we win the Shield this year, and we're going to win the Shield this year, this is tied for the fastest turnaround from Spoon to Shield in MLS history. And I'm not going to say the team that we're tied with for that fastest turnaround from Spoon to Shield. It's not relevant.
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna say it. But also, like, it also like makes me annoyed that, like, people in the MLS, like, media and The Athletic and all those places, they love talking about, like, how shitty our start to MLS was.
Yeah.
And, like, first of all, I would reiterate my comment in the last episode. If you don't make the playoffs, same as the wooden spoon, wasted season.
Okay? Right.
Yep.
We are on the verge of being like the third fastest expansion team to the Supporter Shield after LAFC got it their second year, which was, by the way, their sixth year after being announced as a team. And if you want to be a troll, you could just say, well, they were just Chivas, because they used the Chivas franchise right. So
right.
And then Miami Fusion got it in year 4.
Yeah, which is a very different era when MLS had like 10 teams.
More than 20 years ago. Yeah. So, like, this is extraordinarily fast for this team to get Supporter Shield. And, like, teams that are viewed as, like, big franchises in the league, like NYCFC, like Toronto, did not get any kind of trophy by their 5th season. Orlando did not even make the playoffs until, let's see, until their 6th season, and didn't get and still don't have a MLS Cup or Supporter Shield. The Revs didn't get any kind of MLS trophy until like 2 years ago, and they were like an original MLS franchise. Right?
Made a bunch of finals, but never won them.
Yeah. And so, like, Columbus didn't get a trophy until their 7th season of any kind, and that was the Open Cup. Didn't get a MLS trophy until several years later. I don't think anybody is going to give us, like, appropriate respect for how quickly, like, Atlanta has not won Supporter Shield. Like, Atlanta was a team that has come into the league, and yes, they've won stuff. And they're viewed as like a top franchise. They've not won the Supporter Shield. You know,
they haven't won anything in 3 years either. But I
think like only like half the teams in MLS have won the Supporter Shield.
There's been a lot of repeat winners, so it kind of limits the number of times.
So I guess what I'm saying is, like, there was a lot of people got a lot of joy leading into shitting all over this team, shitting on Jeff Birding, shitting on the franchise.
Carl Linder.
Shitting, Carl Linder taking shots. And I haven't seen a single person outside of this fan base appreciate what has been done in the proper context at this point in the franchise's history.
Now,
like, again, LAFC was announced as a franchise in 2014. They entered in 2018 and they got the Shield in 2019, right? If you go back to, if you say like we were announced as a franchise in 2018, we got to the Shield as fast as LAFC did.
Or if you want to put it in an even wilder context, and this will be a lot of fun as sort of like to talk about a lot of this stuff after we win, but like this club went in 8 years from not existing to winning the USL equivalent of the Supporters Shield, going to MLS, and winning MLS Supporters Shield. And along the way, paying a $350 million, whatever it is, franchise fee, spending another $300
I think it was
million.
150 plus another 200 something for the
when
stadium.
you reach Alderaan.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. So, yeah, okay, paying an MLS franchise fee, building a stadium, building the Mercy Health Training Center, turning the entire team around, winning a Supporters Shield. Like, at some point, there's going to have to be a real discussion about, yeah, were the downs really, really far down on that road? But
sure,
you reached a destination that's pretty damn good that I think there's a lot of teams in MLS that if you gave them the FC Cincinnati deal on an 8-year plan, they would sign up for it, no hesitation.
Well, here's a question, right? And we'll have, let's table this like full discussion for a later episode.
All right, because I got another grievance to air, and that's at the support.
Yeah, but hold on.
Okay.
I just want to like preview the discussion that I think we should have in more full at a later episode. There's like the Florida Marlins model where you suck for a few years, you win a World Series, you dismantle the team, you suck for a while, you win a World Series, you know? But like, and I would combine that with the saying that they came into the league with ambition, and they like, I think this is a birding saying, but I may be wrong, that they were trying to fly the rocket ship while they were building it.
Yeah.
I do wonder, and this going to take a much longer time frame to prove this out, if they did ultimately build the rocket ship, you know? And like, yeah, you can flounder with mediocrity and not win a Supporters Shield. Sure. But if you ultimately do get it right and you're good in the long term, who gives a shit if how many shields you won in the first couple of years?
Right.
You know?
Well, it goes back to this idea that like you'll get online or you'll go anywhere and you'll get hit with like 3 wooden spoons, which is incorrect.
Also, only 2.
Only 2. We've talked about this before. And it's like, my brother in Christ, I don't give a shit how many wooden spoons we won if you win Supporters Shield. We've got 3 wooden spoons. Sure. How many Supporters Shields you got? Is that none? Then fuck you. You're no longer a part of this conversation anymore.
Yeah. Also, like, once we win a trophy, like, again, I don't care about the wooden spoon thing, but it has to go away. Like, nobody throws wooden spoons at, DC or LA Galaxy or
San
other
Jose.
teams, right? Or other teams that have won this award before. Like, we'll have real hardware now. So you and bring it up if you want, but you're now the weirdo.
Can we talk about that real hardware for a second?
Yes, please go on with your grievance here. Dig your hole deeper with the ISC.
I'm very excited for what's going to happen hopefully on Saturday when we win the first trophy in FC Cincinnati history. Over the moon.
In MLS.
Sorry. In FC Cincinnati MLS.
By the way, the only, as far as I know, the only independent, and by independent, I mean not like a 2-team at the time for an MLS team.
Yeah.
The only independent team to win a trophy, to win a regular season championship in a lower league and in MLS is Seattle Sounders.
Yes.
So hopefully, barring world historic catastrophe. We are going to join a very rarefied group.
Yes.
So you win the
Right,
you win the supporters' sword in USL for winning the points total. We have the sword here in Cincinnati. It's hopefully going to make an appearance here very shortly. I can't get over that. I wish the supporters' shield didn't look the way it did. And I'm going to be very excited to win it. It's just, as far as trophies go, it's just really mid. And I'm trying to get myself hyped up about the actual trophy itself. But it sucks, man. I'm sorry. I gotta.
I like it. I think it looks fine.
No, don't take that side.
Oh, you're fucking Sister Wendy over here.
Whatever.
Just
No, it's. No, look, you look at this thing. It's like it's designed like, first off, the whole plate resembles a shitty clip art soccer ball, I think.
Right.
And then on top of the etched shitty soccer ball, they have a ring where I guess they're engraving the names of the teams that win it. And then on top of that, they've got what looks like either the Pontiac logo or the Space Force logo with Supporters Shield MLS Soccer. And there are so many.
The trophy used to look like.
Well, that trophy looked like ass too, and they shouldn't be honoring that on there.
I don't care. It's what the trophy used to look like.
It's not functional as a shield. It looks like you wouldn't be able to deflect anything with it. It doesn't have a plus at the end of it, which means it's not good loot. Let's common loot.
Speaking of functional as a shield, I want to just. So when Philly won the shield in 2020,
oh yeah,
the actual supporter shield had not made its way to Philadelphia yet
because the ISC was refusing to award it because they thought that they were these great gatekeepers of the trophy.
It's not the ISC; it's the Supporter Shield Council.
Well,
there's a separate.
Just for some reason is a different group, but whatever.
It's a Spider-Man meme, is what it is.
Yeah. So, so the actual Supporter Shield was not in Philadelphia. And so what they did was somebody took a Captain America shield, like a toy Captain America shield, and made a replica of the supporter shield. And that's what they celebrated with, which is pretty funny.
I think we did the same thing in USL. I think we had a fake supporters shield that was making its way around
at
bars and stuff like that. I think Chris White did that, if I remember correctly.
I like that.
All right. So you can't chug a beer out of it. You can pour a beer.
Sip a beer. You can pour a beer and sip it.
Nobody sips a beer in celebration.
It's like a ritual, right? You pass it around.
You bathe in it.
You bathe in the water
at Pontifex.
It looks like a communion plate, is what it looks like. Why isn't Pablo Moir upset about this? This is the religious iconography that he should be fucking furious about.
Yeah, someone tag Pablo Moir and ask him. I'm kidding. Please don't.
Please don't do that.
Hashtag one bread, one body. Let's see if we can get this going on right here. So I have a thought, and I was going to share it until I was sternly rebuked by.
Raise you up on Gary's wings.
Bear you on the breath of Blom.
We read the Bible in a previous episode. This is somehow a more religious version of the podcast.
Because this is the true church. The Roman Catholic Church.
I had this take a while ago, back when FC Cincinnati was in its infancy as far as supporters went, that if you really want to get the entire Bailey singing in this city, that you base all your songs on Catholic hymns.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah. Catholic bangers only. Taste and see. We can make that into something. So here's my thought.
Cincy. FC Cincy.
Just these sad long hymns.
That would be like the
shalala. Yeah. So anyway, God. My thought was, and I was going to put this out there. So in the 1990s, Stone Cold Steve Austin famously took the WWE Championship belt and threw it off a bridge because they wanted to retire a title and introduce a new, more modern-looking belt. I think what we should do is we should take the supporter shield and we should chuck it in the river and debut a new trophy. Like, get something better, something that you can yug a beer out of. I'm open to suggestions on what that looks like, but I think that the Supporters Shield, it was designed by MLS 1.0. It is a relic of MLS 1.0.
So it was not designed by MLS 1.0.
1.0 fan bases.
It was designed by fan bases.
Okay, the MLS 1.0 fan bases, the people who needed to be bailed out by places like Philadelphia,
and
Atlanta, Nashville,
was designed
Cincinnati.
by like MLS 2.0.
I don't. Oh, so the design has changed though.
Yeah, so it used to be a trophy.
Right.
We now have precedent.
Right. Now we can, and then it can be something functional after we throw this one in the river.
Sure. It should be a supporter's keg.
Yes. Or a supporter's boot. A Das Boot.
Yeah.
Yeah. A championship belt.
A championship belt would be lit. You can't drink out of a championship belt, so it does violate one of my rules.
You could get creative with whatever else is on the belt there, but
the only thing this is good for in its current state would be placing an extremely large 3-way plate that's just slightly smaller than the Supporters Shield, and then
what should happen.
And then you take the plate of Skyline and then remove it from that plate and dump it on the Supporters Shield to use the bigger plate, as you always should when ordering a Skyline 3-way. And then everybody can take their fork and they can cut and scoop and eat their Skyline properly.
So the supporters groups that are part of the ISC, so the Pride, DI,
Hangar. Is that it?
That's it.
The Bridge,
okay. Just Pride, Hangar, and DI are the only.
Okay, so not the Brigade.
No.
Not Norden.
Not Norden.
Not the Post.
Not the Post.
Not the Queen City War Pigs.
No,
we're still boycotting.
So the three groups should just sit around the plate and share a 3-way out of the shield.
Or it can be like a ceremonial thing, like the Pride can bring the noodles and dump it on. DI can bring the chili and ladle the chili onto it. And then Hanger can bring the shredded block of cheese and dump the cheese on.
Yes.
And then everybody can take their fork in and we can have a big old mouthful of Skyline.
Yep. That's exactly how we should do it.
And then throw the trophy in the river.
That's negotiable, sure.
Throw it in the trash at the Clifton Skyline. just take it out.
Leave it on the bench like the Civil Conflict Trophy after Yukon, Florida, or Central Florida. Can I air another grievance before we get out of the segment?
I mean, what's stopping us?
All right. So as we're recording this tonight, your U.S. Open Cup champions are the Houston Dynamo.
Wait, that's
that is literally what we're going to do in part 2. Yeah.
No, we're going to do it right. I have a grievance about this, though. Do I have to save it?
Save it
just because we've got an hour in part 1.
All right. Further grievances. Anyone else have grievances to air? I have so many more, but we're already an hour in on this.
I think I'm good.
All right.
Right.
Are our souls cleansed, and are we ready to receive the shield with a clean soul and a clean conscience?
I think we are.
Bless me, Gary, for I have sinned.
We got it off of us. We're washing our hands of St. Louis, and it's on to Toronto. So part 2, we'll do a little scoreboard watching. Part 3, we will actually be on to Toronto.
I got one more grievance.
Oh my gosh, sorry. I'm doing the recap. All right.
Sorry, the whole thing where it's like, oh, Pat Noonan's from St. Louis. No one gives a shit.
No one cares.
I'm not bigoted. I don't care where somebody's from.
That wasn't the argument.
We got people from all over the place.
Yeah. That was never the argument. It was never that people from St. Louis are inferior. Also, Blom, not from St. Louis. So what are you trying to get at with this?
The argument is people currently on St. Louis. If they came to us, they would no longer be scumbags.
Yes.
Right.
We've discussed this. Right. If the teams got up and traded jerseys, I would suddenly be Blom's biggest defender.
I had this debate with somebody at work about, like, we were talking about Buccaneers legend Baker Mayfield, and she said, I can never support Baker Mayfield. He was a Cleveland Brown. And I said, no.
He was. If Cleveland Brown played for the Bengals, I would support them.
No, but I said he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. He didn't have a choice in the matter. Once he had the opportunity to go elsewhere, he went elsewhere. The true scumbag is Ben Roethlisberger, who was drafted by a scumbag franchise and then re-signed with the scumbag franchise when he could have chosen to go elsewhere. Once you unknowingly associate yourself with the scumbags, you then take on the characteristics of a scumbag. It's like the old saying, if there's 5 Nazis and one person in a room, there's really 6 Nazis in a room because you're not choosing to associate with the Nazi. Not saying people from St. Louis are Nazis. Don't get over your skis on this.
Or people from Canada who happened to fight for the Nazis in World War II.
Or your grandfather that doesn't like to talk about what he did during World War II in your very German West Side family. We all understand it. It's okay.
Or why there's a Brazilian guy who plays for St. Louis whose last name is Klaus. We're not looking at this.
We're just talking scumbags. Scumbags only. Yeah. But if there are 5 scumbags and a nice guy in the room, you become the scum. There's 6 scumbags in the room. Pat Noonan. He left St. Louis. He is now in Cincinnati. Scumbag status revoked.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Also, never played for or worked for a St. Louis team.
Yeah.
After high school.
Yeah. All right, let's get over to part 2, and then we'll do to part 3, and then whatever. All right, let's get out. This episode is also brought to you by Cincy Shirts. Look, you know Cincy Shirts. You love Cincy Shirts. They've been with FCC from the beginning, and we here at the Postcast, we're just huge fans of their work. They were very early sponsors of the Postcast here, and we have always enjoyed their work. If you head on over to cincyshirts.com, that's Cincy with a Y, shirts.com, and check out using the promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps, you will get 10% off your order, and you let them know that we sent you. Like, they have MLS and MLSPA licensed FCC gear available online and at their 2 retail locations in Hyde Park and Fort Mitchell. If they don't have your size on the shelf, they can print you one on the spot. That is a fantastic feature and something that I have used as well. So again, special thank you to Cincy Shirts. Head on over to their website or check the link down below in the description for the promo code ThePostCincy for 10% off your next order. And a huge thank you to Cincy Shirts. All right, we are back at it. Part 2. Did a little scoreboard watching. Chief, I know you want to start here, so let's go here. The U.S. Open Cup wrapped up as we were recording here. Your Houston Dynamo are the champions of the U.S. Open Cup in a game hosted in Miami, a team that famously beat us in penalties to get there. Chief, what could you possibly have to be aggrieved about?
I had moved on. I really had. I had moved on, and what had helped me move on was this idea of Miami got their airdrop of questionable financial resources in order to completely remake their team. And I just had to own that, because sometimes you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
And that was Cincinnati and the rest of the league this year when it came to Open Cup. We were all just in the wrong place at the wrong time. That this Miami team that was awful had managed to advance to a point in the Open Cup where if you infuse them with a lot of talent, they would have a shot to win Open Cup. And that's what happened. Except it turns out that talent only showed up for one goddamn game, and it was the one they beat us in. And I was completely cool with this until the word came out that he who must not be named didn't even dress for this game tonight.
Ugh.
And it just sort of like, well, what was the goddamn point of him playing in the first place to get them to this point? Like, this just seems now so profoundly unfair and just directly targeted at us to fuck our Open Cup run up. Like, it would be one thing if Houston went out and beat him, capital H-I-M, he is him, and his team. But they didn't do that. They just beat the same old Miami team that we thought we were going to play. And Yeah, I got a problem with that. And it's like reopened up. It's ripped the scab off a wound I thought had healed at this point. And I have a big ass grievance to air with that I feel like this is a clown win for Houston. This is an asterisk Open Cup. This should have been ours. And I'm going to be mad about this for at least another 20 to 30 minutes.
I'm not mad at Houston. I'm envious of Houston for sure.
Yeah.
Not Houston's fault. Houston, just did what they had to do.
They're not scumbags or anything.
To play Miami without, I hope somebody has that book open because I'm going to say it. I would have been fucking happy to play Houston without Messi. Or to play Miami without them. And
I thought for a second there we were going to get the twofer in the same spot. I thought the National was about to sell a fucking ticket right here.
Yeah, so send the book page over. I'll read it later.
All right.
I can't help but feel targeted, honestly, by this whole thing.
Yeah,
because like it fucked specifically up our cup run. Yep. And, the team's going to play probably a lot of games without their best player in the regular season, but I think they're still going to qualify for the playoffs. And I actually do. I predict that they'll still qualify for the playoffs without their best player because they have so many games in hand. And then I guarantee that someone shows up.
Oh, right.
For the first round of the playoffs.
Sure, why not?
And it's just so frustrating because it's hard to feel like it's not specifically calculated to keep a team that MLS does not particularly want to be a top team from its rightful place.
Right.
Right. At least this year. Like, Pete, you can show us 5-1 or 3-0 all you want, but FC Cincinnati is, I think, like got the best 11 in MLS.
Yep,
and has been the best team in MLS consistently all year.
Yeah,
it's just the Nashville game was the Nashville game. It just didn't come together for whatever reason. That happens.
Right.
But you're just like, okay, well, we're going to play Barcelona from 2022 in the Open Cup semifinal and then in the first round of the playoffs, but nobody else has to play that team. That's like pretty fucked up.
Right?
Right.
They cranked the difficulty up onto Heisman mode for 1 week.
Right. Oh, God. Yeah. No, I think Cincy fans should absolutely feel aggrieved about this one. And it is really the only sour mark on an insane season, but it's sour in just the right spot, in just the right way that, you can see this really properly derailing enough of the good vibes of this season to matter more later on.
And
it just sucks.
I do want the Open Cup because of its history with our team.
Yeah, absolutely.
The funny thing is you won't know how to put this into perspective for a while. Like this team wins Supporters Shield, hopefully this weekend, if not, whenever. And if they win MLS Cup, it's an interesting footnote that they were prevented from getting the treble by the fact that old, LM shows up for one round of the Open Cup, wins the game for his team almost single-handedly, and then disappears, never to be seen from again as his team gets stomped out in the championship. Like
would have been an unprecedented historical fluke away from the first American domestic treble.
Right.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And that's if we win MLS Cup.
Which if we do,
I feel decent about. Like I feel like we should be confident going into the MLS Cup playoffs.
Absolutely, but especially in MLS, if somebody offers you FCC or the field, you probably take the field every time.
Yeah, in a single tournament.
Every year I would take the field versus any individual team.
Exactly.
Well, I'll bet on us then.
Like there was one year where like I think seemingly unstoppable Atlanta lost to Columbus, and then LAFC the first time they won the Supporter Shield, they didn't even. I don't think they made MLS Cup.
They were knocked out of the first round by Galaxy.
Yeah, there you go.
So do you agree with me that this is an asterisk on this Open Cup win for Houston?
I
no.
would like it to be an asterisk on the Open Cup win if Miami had won. I just have a really hard time holding it against Houston. Because all Houston did, because Houston made the final, honestly.
Sure.
Yeah.
But they didn't have to. They didn't have to play the team that
we had to play in the
that we had to play.
Yeah. In fairness, literally nobody else did either.
Yeah.
I don't hold it against
Legion also didn't have to.
I was just about to say I don't hold it against the Riverhounds either. Right.
I genuinely believe this, and I want this. Can you guys just lay out for a second, because I really want this.
Oh,
I want this to be something that people can clip later and play, because this is important and needs to be said.
I'm excited.
FC Cincinnati can still win the Open Cup if Mike Pence has the courage to do what's right.
Look, I know some engravers. If our name ends up on the trophy, that's basically a win, right?
Yeah.
I think.
You know, the real hard part, too, is you can chug a beer out of the Open Cup.
I know.
Does the top open?
Yeah.
It has like a topper.
Yeah, I think it opens. I think we confirmed that.
Okay.
We look for pictures on Google image search just to see if we could find someone drinking out of it. And we found someone drinking out of it, I think.
Most drinkable trophies.
I do think that something that could unite St. Louis and FC Cincinnati fans is being convinced that something that was clearly won outright was nevertheless stolen. There's just something about them that I do believe they may share that in common.
Yeah. At least their representation. The good news is, outside of the Open Cup, well, it's sad to be reminded of that. I will say, if you had asked me who I was pulling for, I was very happy the Orange team won tonight in the Open Cup. But I'll say elsewhere in the league, the scoreboard watching has been very lovely. Also this evening, the Philadelphia Union drew FC Dallas 1-1. Is that how that final ended up?
I believe so.
Or did it end up 2-2?
They almost lost that game outright. If I were on a goal that was overturned.
Yep.
Would have been nice. But with that draw, I mean, how much this matters in a couple of days, we'll see. But Philadelphia can now no longer surpass us on total points. The most they could do is tie us. If they did tie us on points, they would also tie us on the first tiebreaker, which is wins. But in order for that whole thing to happen, they would then pass us on goal differential. So,
and again, something has gone horrendously wrong.
Right.
If any of that comes to pass.
And that horrendous thing happens, but we still only lose all of the games 1-0 is how I'm looking at it. So yeah.
Right.
Which, I mean, way to go, MLS Next Pro team, because you were hot garbage in that league. But if you guys step up to the plate and lose every game 1-0, that's very impressive.
But yeah, so if the next point we get or the next point Philly drops, they're out.
That eliminates them.
Only Orlando and New England in the league can pass us on points.
Correct.
Which is insane to think about. And
4 games left.
Yeah,
perfect.
4 games left.
It would take these teams winning every single game, not dropping a single point.
Right.
And us losing every single game, not picking up a point.
Yep.
And Grayson, correct me if I'm wrong, we need 2 points in order to securely be ahead of everybody's potential point totals.
We need 3.
No, We need
New
3.
England
2
can
would
still
tie.
get to 64.
Okay. That's it. Okay.
But
so
Orlando
we need
can
3
only
points.
get to 63.
That 3 points, though, can cut both ways, right? So this weekend, if New England, Orlando, and Philly all lose or drop points,
and we tie,
that's
the Shield.
There it is.
Well, Philly's, who cares?
Right.
If New England and Orlando both drop any amount of points, and we at least
do not
tie,
win,
that's the Shield.
Boom,
there
Shield.
It is. So, feeling pretty good about this one. Is there anything else? I know we have a part 2 here for scoreboard watching, but there is suddenly so few scoreboards to watch here. Is there anything else we want to be keeping tabs on? By the way, sorry, a further peek behind the curtain. We are recording this in what I would think is very late at night. The Campeones Cup has yet to kick off tonight.
It's kicked off. They're
did it kick off?
They're 5.5 minutes in.
Okay. I thought they kicked off at 11:30. Chief, did you know that they were still playing the Campeones Cup? And on the spot, could you tell me who's in it?
Cruz Azul?
No.
I don't know.
It's LAFC and Tigres.
Yeah.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah. Go Campeones. The only thing that we have to start watching, I think, as our scoreboard watching pivots, is that my understanding of the new Tricky Don MLS playoffs extravaganza is that we will, as the number 1 seed, play the winner of a play-in game of some sort between the 8 seed and the 9 seed.
Yep.
So starting to track that, currently the 8-9 spot is 37 points is where that sits. And you can go 8 to 14 because Toronto is just there.
They are eliminated.
Been there. We'll just say that much for it. 14th place is Inter Miami at 32 points, but with 2 games in hand over some teams, 1 game in hand over others. So they're at 32 points. So they're only 5 points off the pace there and could make that up with games in hand. So it is incredibly tightly bunched. 8 Montreal, 9 NYCFC, 10 DC United, Red Bulls 11, Chicago inexplicably 12, Charlotte 13, Inter Miami 14. So watch this space down at the bottom. It's incredibly tightly bunched down there. And our opponent in that first round of the playoffs, which I think is a best 2 of 3 format, 2 at home, 1 on the road, if I remember correctly.
It is 1 at home, 1 on the road. And if it's still tied after those 2 games, the final tiebreaker game is back at the higher seeds home.
Okay. So just watch that space down there and we can start to pay attention, and we'll talk about some of these games this weekend as we get results. But that's where our opposition is going to be. And for most of those teams, other than Inter Miami, you kind of like those matchups. That's a lot of teams that we have a recent track record of doing pretty well against, other than Montreal. But again, you're going to get 2 of those games at home. So
yeah. Keep an eye on it too. New England and Atlanta and Columbus are all on 49 points. Pretty much untouchable there. Nashville's on 44 points. And if Montreal or New York City FC were to string together a couple of victories here down the stretch, not impossible to see Nashville stumble and fumble their way into the play-in game.
It should be noted, though, Nashville does have 2 games in hand over New York City and DC.
Oh, that's a good point.
And a game in hand over Montreal. So that lead, they're trending the wrong way, but that lead could become pretty insurmountable with 1 win from Nashville's point of view.
Good call. Also, somebody reached out about this. We'll just say it right now. If you've made it this far into the podcast, hey, good job. Game in hand is the shorthand for saying they have played a fewer game, 1 less game or 2 less games if they have 2 games in hand than the other teams around them or in total. So right now, the most games played in the Eastern Conference is 31 games. Atlanta has done that. New York City, DC United have done that. Everybody else has played 30 or 29 games. So you would refer to those teams as having games in, or those teams as having games in hand. And it makes it kind of hard to judge the full, shakeout of where the table's going to end up. Kind of like what I just did with Nashville there. Nashville's on 44 points up, but they got 2 games in hand on the 2 teams chasing them. Unlikely they lose both, but not impossible. But you have to keep it in mind when you're looking at the table there. So basic stuff for a lot of people, but hey, if you're new to this, that's going to be useful for you.
Reminds you of the old, half game in baseball, which, it turns out the Reds probably should have paid a little more attention to.
Yeah. If you're 2.5 games back in baseball, that makes sense for a lot of sports fans. But yeah, the game in hand is how soccer manages that. Cool. Is there anything else we need on scoreboard watching before we pretend to care about this Toronto team?
Grayson, I sent your punishment in the chat. Would you like to do that now, or would you like to wait till the next segment?
Ooh.
I'll do it at the beginning of segment 3.
All right.
Segment 3, we'll start off with a random page from Becky Zimmerman's book. All right, let's head on over there. All right, we are back. And before we preview the Toronto FC versus FC Cincinnati match, well, Grayson, it's time to pay the Pied Piper here. And the punishment that you willfully walked right into. So I don't know how much this is a punishment. So Chief sent you your page from Becky Zimmerman's bestseller. I don't know if anybody else is not aware of this. Walker Zimmerman's mother wrote a book about sort of Walker Zimmerman's life. We found this very amusing. And as a punishment for speaking he who must not be named, we have to read a page out of his book. So Grayson, have at it.
All right. So once again, this is a page of a book. We're starting at the beginning of the page to the end of the page. So we are in media res here. Okay. So the first sentence I'm going to say, so it's the first sentence, no, M dash, then you know. All right. So I'm going to continue with the first full sentence. So yeah, Marco went on. Before the Lightning, I thought soccer was the only answer. It's all I had. It brought me joy, fun, friends, and the thrill of competition. But I had asked too much of soccer, Good old soccer was trying to make me happy, but I made a religion out of it, I think. I even wore the Soccer is Life shirt. But when it comes down to it, soccer can't deliver all we need. I know now it's not complete happiness, just like I discovered drugs and sex weren't either. I don't know what all this means for my life, but I know I gotta help her now. I'm not alone. 2 weeks ago, I was in despair. Now I have hope. Not just to escape death, but to live life. We listened. Clint was silent, head down as he drummed his glow stick steadily against the palm of his hand. Tyler burst onto the scene. Walker! There's a ball in the woods back by the shed. Tyler mashed the mood like my brother smashes my Little Debbie snack cake when I'm not looking. Marco, Tyler said, when are you coming back to practice? Hopefully next week, he grinned. So what were you doing in the woods by the shed? Clint glanced at me. Even though it was dark, I could imagine Tyler's face changing shades in the moonlight. Hunting balls. What do you think? Actually, Tyler, I think you started out hunting someone and ended up hunting balls, Clint said. Our conversation...
Oh, sorry, continue.
Our conversation moved back outward to lighter things, like getting free burgers and what we had to do to win the next few games to stay on top. And then there's a heading. It says, Replay the Day. As I lie in bed and reach for my Bible in the nightstand, I notice for the first time in a year a photo of my friends and me sitting on a log at camp. End of scene.
Hunting balls. What do you think?
Wow. Hunting balls. I thought that's where the page was ending, and I was going to die. That was such a good end. That's the most walk-off ending ever.
He thought he found drugs.
Man.
He thought he found sex. He thought soccer was life, but it turns out it was the old man JC that he was really looking for all along.
He even wore the T-shirt. He even wore the T-shirt.
Football is life.
I think FCC sells that T-shirt in the team store.
Well, don't tell Becky Zimmerman that, because that's not how any of this works.
Oh gosh. Well, Grayson, thank you so much for your punishment. I'm glad we're now all on equal footing, and the stakes are a little higher for the second screw up. So I don't know how we got out of the second segment actually without anybody screwing that up. So well done to all of us there. We're on to Toronto, 7:30 on Saturday. Did you need the time? Toronto's real bad. It's kind of incredible to think that this was a Bob Bradley team to start the season. They had Bernadeschi, they had Insigne. They really thought they were going to do to this league what it looked like Miami was going to do to this league. It does appear that they screwed up literally every single signing for this club. I can't think of a single one that was like a big success. Remember when we were really mad we missed out on Matt Hedges?
Yeah.
Now he's not playing in Austin.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, they minus 24 on the goal differential. They've won 4 games.
Just lost like 3-0 to NYCFC.
It's not pretty there. They have Sean Johnson, right? Is he still the goalkeeper?
That's a good question. So I'm going to go down the player availability report for the last game. It's not available for the next game yet. Okay. But here's what was missing in the last game. Adama Diamande, Christian Gutierrez, Sean Johnson, Cassius Malula, Greg Ranjit Singh, backup goalie, Brandon Cervania, and then also Insigne didn't play last game.
Wow.
I did look up. I couldn't find. It doesn't seem like Toronto has like media that tweets the training every day like we do. Yeah. So I was trying to find like training updates for them and I couldn't. But I wouldn't expect Sean Johnson back. He had surgery in like mid-late August.
Oh, boy.
It was hand surgery, and they were saying like a 4 to 6 week timetable. And
why come back,
he had
buddy?
only just gotten back to Toronto like last week, but still was recovering.
Gotcha. Yeah. No reason to risk it, Sean. Sit this one out again.
Yeah, Insigne, who was only questionable last game but didn't dress. I don't see any reason for him to play either.
Yeah.
They were the first team eliminated or the second team? First team in the East eliminated from the playoffs.
First team in the East. I think they would have been first if the New York City game hadn't been delayed due to a water main break. Because the technical first team was the Colorado Rapids, but I think if kickoff times had stuck to what they were originally scheduled and the games went the same way, they would have been eliminated about an hour earlier. Yeah, this team's real bad. And as far as I can tell, everything would suggest passports are in order, vaccinations don't matter. Everybody is healthy.
Whoa, wow, Kevin.
I'm just saying, last year, this was a major, major talking point for this team. But I think this will be the first game, Brenner or Bupenza era of this season, that we will have the 100% first choice starting 11 available and hopefully and ideally starting in this game. Grayson, am I missing something?
No.
Okay,
however,
good.
Not to derail this, but I did remember a grievance I wanted to bring up in round 2.
Oh, yeah.
During the early days of the Stam out movement.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
Oh yes.
I remember a certain podcast. I'm not going to say them by name.
Knifey Lion Radio.
Nope.
Old Man Ultras.
But you may say they talk about soccer in Cincinnati. Being very indignant in early 2021 about any suggestion that Stam be fired. And one of the folks on that podcast said, "Who would you hire? Ben Olsen?"
U.S. Open Cup winning Ben Olsen? Would that be?
Right. I had actually, I think, tweeted like a list of people who I thought would be better than Jaap Stam. And one of them was Cherundolo, who wasn't the LAFC coach yet. But one of the people on my list was Ben Olsen. And I just want to point out, Ben Olsen just won Open Cup and has Houston in a home playoff position. Now, would I rather have Pat Noonan? Yes. But if you're giving me the choice between Jaap Stam and Ben Olsen, I know what I would choose.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if the choice was between Jaap Stam and everyone who has coached Toronto this year, I would still pick them because they have 22 points after 30 games played. We finished 2021 with 20 points after a full season of 34. So they are still doing better than where we were at the lowest point in our fandom of FC Cincinnati, I think.
However, they have nothing to play for.
Nothing.
Yeah. They've been eliminated.
If only we had ProRel. If only.
I'm pretty sure it's just an interim manager. That there's no attempts to sort of build towards the future.
It's a gut job on that team. They went with the full Italian movement, and they are arguably in as bad of a situation from a roster point of view as FC Cincinnati was for different reasons, but they are going to have to shed a lot of high-priced players for whoever, or they're going to have to hire someone who is a legit turnaround specialist in MLS that can make the best of the turd sandwich that they've got the ingredients for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, to relate back to a thing I've already mentioned, Toronto is still viewed as like a marquee team in MLS.
Yeah.
But they went like 8 seasons to start their existence without making the playoffs. And they went like 10, 11 years before they won their first MLS trophy. Mm-hmm. And like, yes, they won the double. Great for them. And they were good for a couple of years. But they've been bad. Like really, really bad the last few years. When did we get to have the conversation about like, I guess, I don't know, like, when do we become like a marquee job? And we get to have a conversation about like Toronto as being like, yeah, by and large, a shitty franchise in MLS that had a couple of good years.
Or I don't know when that happens, but you'd like to think that this year we start putting a lot of chips on our side of the scale with that one.
I mean, you have Lucho, on a long-term deal now. By the end of that deal, is Lucho's legacy in MLS above Giovinco's?
Assuming even if Lucho falls off 5% every year for the remainder of his deal, he ends up as one of the greatest MLS players of all time. Like I think that's the conversation he's in at the end of his career, unless he falls off hard.
It's unfair to put that pressure on Lucho, right? Like I don't think he needs to be one of the greatest players in MLS history to have been a great player for FC Cincinnati, right?
Absolutely.
However, you look at the last 2 years that he's had, and you look at the players that we have under contract for the next few years, and then you hope that we keep Albright and Noonan through Lucho's contract at the very least.
Yep.
Lucho does have the potential of getting on the pantheon of great players in Major League Soccer. And then you throw in the potential that he plays for the U.S. men's national team in Copa America.
Right.
This is a guy who at the beginning of 21, Sam Stayskool responded to me on Twitter that he thought Lucho was not a DP.
Yeah.
That was what people thought about Lucho when we signed him as a DP. And you look at where he is now, and what seems more likely? That he's going to stay at least in perception where he is now, or he's going to go back to where he was in early 2021.
Right. At a minimum, having Miazga, Bupenza, and Wobodo on the spine of this team, and Roman Celentano for that matter, the center of this team is just fine. It'll be fine until 2026, 2027. Everything else, that's where Albright and Noonan will make their money, is making the rest of it hum. But yeah, I do think it's an interesting view for this game, looking at Toronto and Cincinnati, because Toronto, it was very famously, I forget the full context, but Toronto was declared the worst soccer team in the world somewhere around 2006. They were just a horrific team. They made a big deal to splash some cash to sign Jermaine Defoe, who spent a season and a half here. It went terrible. He went back to England. It was a very productive player for the remainder of his career. Outside of the time when Tim Bezpachenko, who is now the GM at Columbus, was in Toronto, they've been irrelevant. And a large part of that time since, hired Bezpachenko, and then since he left, he's been in charge of that, is Bill Manning, who's been their president. And this is the guy that literally uses transfer market and FIFA to find players to sign, to bring into their club. And that's literally what he did. You can go find the interview. He went on transfer market. He found, he liked that the Italian national team won the Euros, and he just sorted by time or years left on contracts, found 2 players on that team, and just offered them all the money to come over. That was it. That's how they built this team. There was no foresight. There was no thought. There was no consideration that Bernardeschi and Insigne had history not getting along on club teams before, that they had locker room issues. It's just so weird. It's just such a sad thing. I don't know. For me, it's just another feather in the cap of kick the Canadian teams out of the league.
Yeah,
we'll lose a decent away day to Montreal, but we can make up for that. Give those teams to USL franchises that have earned it, and let's move on.
And the only funny part of the Toronto story, because I do feel bad for any fan base going through this, but can you imagine the howling or the stories and the think pieces that would have been written if it would come out that Jeff Birding was going on to transfer market and signing players? There is such a goddamn double standard of. I understand that we were bad, but they danced on our fucking grave. And there is not half of the indignation over he went on a fucking website and Googled who are the players I should be signing. That's one step up from asking your MLS FIFA player, your EE MLS player, hey, do these players have good green lines between them on the ultimate team? Or is this a problem I need to worry about? Just... Right. All I'm asking for is I am asking for intellectual honesty, and that if we're going to get fucking lambasted for something, I want everyone to be lambasted for the same thing. Just be consistent with how you treat people.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, how does Chicago's owner still get fawning profiles in the Athletic? versus, our boy, our best friend,
the guy dear friend of the pod,
the guy who we love the most.
I mean, look, those teams obviously weren't good. I'm not going to sit here and say that they were good or whatever. But yeah, it's the fact that Cincinnati was treated as just like the worst thing that ever happened to MLS.
An affront to soccer in America. And I'm sorry, were they bad? Yeah. Sure. Were they bad for a couple of years? Yeah, but there's a lot of teams that are bad for multiple years in this league, and you don't nearly get as many, just knives out bullshit.
Right. Did they deserve to be treated like they were like some just world historic abomination?
Right.
And then given that treatment, and I know we already treaded this ground in the first segment, but like given that the way this team was treated as just like an absolute affront that they were taking up space in this league for a couple of years, to the underwhelming reception of them walking away with, I'll say it, the supporter shield this year.
Right.
Think how mad you'll be when the person who turns Toronto around and takes them to the 7th seed or the 6th seed when they win Coach of the Year next year for the great job they did taking Toronto out of the basement.
It'll happen too. Yeah, and I mean, look, you want to be the cynical, sports reporter or defend the league and look out for the league. You can survive Cincinnati being bad as a league. You can survive Kansas City being bad as a league. You can survive Nashville being bad as a league. Where you can't survive? If Dallas is irrelevant,
Chicago.
When Houston is irrelevant, when Chicago is irrelevant, when both New York teams are irrelevant. You want knives out for some people? These are the folks that are dragging your league down.
Right.
So,
honestly, the people running Toronto and Chicago should be getting more shit.
Yes.
Than birding. Because you're like, look what they're doing in Cincinnati.
Right. How are you not able to do this? Right. Either give us stars or give us a good team. And Chicago can't give us stars or a good team. And Toronto really somehow screwed up the star thing and then also managed to not get a good team.
Shaqiri and Insigne.
Right.
As of the latest MLSPA salary drop, the highest paid players in the league.
Yeah. And what are they getting for that? Would a USL team take Shaqiri right now? If they want to win.
Honestly, I would take Shaqiri, not a DP deal.
Yeah, the MLS Next Pro team could use him.
But if he wants a Yu Kubo's salary, I bet Pat New would figure out what to do with him.
Let's make this happen.
With the same contract, with the never-ending contract.
Yeah, the Kubo never-ending deal. We have Shaqiri in perpetuity for like $1.2 million a year.
If it somehow included the right of first refusal,
Lucho could figure out something to do with Shaqiri.
That's a good point. I actually trust Noonan to get a tune out of him, as they say.
Lucho, Shaqiri, and Bupenza on a reality show where they have to somehow learn to build a boat and sail it or something.
We don't have anybody on it. Now that Medunjanin is gone, do we have anybody with problematic Eastern European connections or ties? Not that he had problematic. Shaqiri's tied up with Kosovo independence stuff, and I don't know how. Yeah.
Wait, what's Medunjanin tied to?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know exactly who hates who over there.
His wife is Israeli,
but I know he was.
And I don't want to talk about. I don't want to.
I'm saying
we have a strict no wags policy on this podcast anyway. So
born in Yugoslavia.
Nice things about Santiaris' wife being very famous,
right, and being a business leader and a girl boss in her own right.
No, I'm just saying he was born in Yugoslavia. I don't know exactly who hates who over there. I feel like somebody could have accidentally.
It's always everyone.
Right. That's anyway, let's get to predicting.
Right? Let's go have a beer. We'll talk it out.
It's been like 10 years.
It's all the same.
Yeah, we'll just draw a line here. You can have your own country. We'll draw a line over here. You can have your own country. This has never fucked anything up.
No.
So if you take a bus up the coast of Croatia, you have to do a passport check through like an area controlled by Bosnia and Herzegovina. They just have like a carve out on the coast where there's just like a gas station. There's like a gas station in the gift shop. And you have
a historic gas station.
You have to do a passport check like getting in, and then a passport check like getting out. It's very weird. So
when you pull into the gas station, there's a checkpoint. When you pull out the exit,
yeah, basically, yeah.
This is the part of the podcast where we forget we're recording a podcast and we're just talking with one another and just bullshit.
There is that.
Congratulations.
Christ, we're on 2 hours. Chief, give me your predictions. Give me your predictions for the Toronto game.
5-0.
Oh my God.
Like
I died.
Clowning that wins the Shield.
I love it. Grayson, top that.
Fuck it. 6-0.
$1,
now
Bob. $1.
God, 2-0 Toronto. No, I'll go 3-0. I won't be as dramatic as my co-hosts here.
And if you've listened this long in the podcast, a little birdie has told me that, and not BERDIE. This is Intel. Has informed me that the team is expected to arrive in around 1 a.m. at CVG. Stay tuned for details on Saturday night. So,
ooh,
at the private jet area, I guess.
Yeah.
Of CVG.
So stay tuned. As soon as we're allowed to release information officially, we'll put it in into the post Discord and other Discords as well.
Yep. So if you've been in the Discord strictly for the purposes of sharing what you see there in other podcast chats, stay tuned.
You'll have some good info. You'll have something to take back to the nest. Oh God. Well, so much for a short one. Chief, get us out of here.
Fuck the scumbags and fuck Columbus.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast, which is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com for all of our written content, as well as links to our social media. You can follow us on Twitter, and as well, you can join us on our Discord server. You can find links to that server both in this episode description as well as on our website. That is where most of our conversations are going on. We have a lovely community there talking about FC Cincinnati, MLS, anything and everything else and everything in between. We also want to give a huge thanks to Jim Trace and the Makers for providing all of the music you've heard throughout this episode. They're an amazing local Cincinnati band. Again, more information about them is in the description of this episode. And if you enjoyed what you listened to, and you've made it to the end, so I'm going to assume you liked it, or you just can't reach your stop button, please like us, review us, subscribe to us wherever you are getting your podcasts. That is going to be really, really helpful. But more importantly, share this with a friend. A personal recommendation helps spread a podcast so much further. So please share this if you know somebody in your life who's an FC Cincinnati fan, an MLS fan, somebody that you think would enjoy this. Pass it on over. Thank you so much again for listening. It blows me away that people continue to listen to us. And thank you so much again.